evening, afternoon, or whenever you might be listening to this. Welcome back to Nerding Out. My name is Evan.
I'm Nathanael.
I'm David.
And I'm Doug.
Hi, Doug. Welcome back. I love having you on here, man. You beautiful bald.
Hello there.
more shaved head. You're not bald.
Yeah.
But it looks good. It's very, very becoming of you. So, news.
Done? You want to get a room? Or?
Don't tempt me.
There's one over there across the room.
I thought this was the room.
There was like 5 rooms I walked by, so take your pick.
We don't have much when it comes to news, but Nathaniel, you're the in-house Nintendo boy, so
yes.
You know about the Nintendo Direct thing that dropped, right?
I do.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so it was about 36 minutes of Nintendo goodness. The biggest announcement, I think, was that Animal Crossing is coming next year for Switch. A lot of people are excited about that. I haven't played Animal Crossing, but some people are. They're pretty high for Animal Crossing. It's been a while like that, but 10 times that. So they didn't show a trailer or anything, but they did reveal that Isabelle, one of the characters from Animal Crossing, is going to be in Smash Bros. She's this little, like, cutesy Animal Crossing, like, dog, and she's going to kick some fighters in the face, so...
Awesome.
Yeah, so, what else? They had new Super Mario Brothers...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Super Mario Bros.
Deluxe
for Switch, right?
Yeah, it's for Switch. It's like it's like 2D Mario multiplayer, but it was a Wii U game, so they're remastering it and adding stuff for Switch. Another in the long line of remasters, which I'm tired of. But nobody played Wii U, so people need to play these games.
Like, what was that?
What's Wii U?
Wii U? You mean it was like...
What's that?
It was like Wii
You mean PU?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, just like,
that was stupid.
No, literally nobody played Wii U. I bought one when it came out, but I was just like,
They're like that thing that I...
Nick, what are you doing here? No, I'm kidding.
You're interrupting my podcast, man. It's my turn.
Here, you can move my backpack.
Basically...
flying.
You can sit on the therapist couch.
The therapist.
You had last week, asshole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You had last week, asshole.
Time jumps.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that Wii U is like that kid you have out of wedlock that you forget about, and you don't really, you never take care of it because you forgot he existed, and then when you come back to him, you're like, oh, I would have had all these good times with you, but it was better. I was doing stuff that was better, and I don't care. I'm sorry. Just
wow.
If you kill yourself, it would be better. So.
You think that's bad? I had a deadbeat dad joke last week. You think that's bad?
They had Luigi's Mansion 3 comes next year.
Oh, that's right. Luigi's Mansion 3, in case you needed another Luigi's Mansion for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah. Wait, we're supposed to do 20. They have a contract for 20. Like, they're already on 3? Like, come on, let's hurry up.
15 spin-offs, come on.
Come on,
15
where's my Daisy game? For real.
I need my Tingle.
They actually
game.
did
I want
announce
a
that Daisy
specific
Dukes. Daisy Dukes for
Daisy Dukes for Smash Bros.
Daisy isn't Smash Bros though.
Daisy isn't Smash Bros.
Yeah,
That's sweet. Sweet.
And there's like other news you can look up that I don't remember or care about. So I'm sorry. That was all I remember. There's more stuff for sure.
Now, going into one of my personal favorite segments of our newly added segments is David's Trowbridge.
It feels like 1920. My pockets are empty and I'm well, welcome to David's Trowbridge.
I'm working up the anger
So David, get mad. Slap yourself a little bit.
easily.
Easily, okay.
Easily.
That's my secret, Cap. I'm
Let
always
me
angry.
explain to you the stupidest thing since probably Paper Mario. Probably the stupidest thing since Paper Mario. Not a Paper Mario.
It's a great game.
So I'm trying to sleep.
Do I sense another debate?
What?
You think it's stupid. He thinks it's the best.
It's stupid because I couldn't beat it.
The truth comes out.
It's the youth, sir.
Just a blue breaks.
So I'm trying to sleep in my house, and for perspective, we live on a residential kind of, we have neighbors and all that, and the houses are kind of close. My neighbors all around me have dogs. Okay, so the one on my right hand side, just for perspective, the one on the right hand side, they have a small dog, doesn't bark a lot. One behind us, same thing, has a really fun pit bull bulldog mix. He's the chubby. He reminds me of the one from Sherlock Holmes. And then you have my other neighbor who decides to collect dogs like it's Pokemon cards, and like they don't don't need leashes. They're barking their dogs. That's what they do. People don't sleep. I don't sleep. So
I don't see the issue here.
Here's the issue.
Seeing greatness.
Here's the issue. So I got home this morning. Okay, I drove down from Disney at 2 a.m. I had to drop off my friend at Temecula and then drive back home. I had woken up the morning before at 4 in the morning. 4 in the morning. So I get home and I'm trying to just stroll right in and just trying to get into my house, right? Both my parents are asleep, my brother's asleep, and the screen door is locked. There's no extra key to our house, but luckily our fences are crap and I can climb them. So here's the problem. On my side of the house, we have this alarm system installed, and sometimes there's this thing that happens where the dogs next door will bark so loud the alarm system will trip. I'm not even joking. So here's the thing that happens.
No way.
No. I think that's the best part yet. So I try to get home and I start climbing over that side of the fence. And who's in the backyard? All 99.9% of the dog population on Earth is in the backyard. And they all do the same thing because I have a motion light in my backyard. It turns on, they go. There's a delay. I make eye contact with like a couple of them, and then the littlest, of course, it's the littlest chihuahua. The rest are going on.
Always the little one that starts it.
Yeah, and I say, and I'm like, this is fantastic. Because my parents are on the same side of the house. So I'm like, they'll wake up and they'll let me in. No. So I'm still trying to get into the house. And I'm trying to get in, and there's a window on the back side of the house that I can open up and open and crawl through and put back into place.
So I'm just hearing how to break into the house.
Okay, now I'm trying to get into my house, and then I remember that my dad fixed the alarm on that side. So I'm like halfway through taking this outside window apart. I'm like, this isn't going to work. The thing's going to go off. And when it goes off, when something like that happens, when it tampers with it, it doesn't just like go off and then it's just like waits for someone to turn the alarm off. It calls the police instantly. But here's the best part. So I start putting the window back together. But because now the outside part of the window is off, the dog barking trips the alarm. And so who comes whizzing? I'm like 5 minutes from a police station. Who comes whizzing by my street? 2 or 3 cop cars. And then who crawls over the fence? Me! Because I'm trying to get into my house, and both my parents were like, we're gonna need some ID. And as I'm crawling over the fence, none of the dogs are barking. None of the dogs are barking. That was barking at me, but police sirens and lights, they're dead silent. They don't give a shit. They're just like,
They know they're protected now. The cops finally show up to do their job.
As I crawl over, I look over my shoulder to see if they're there and about to bark. They're all gone. I'm like, where the did they go? Because this guy doesn't give a shit about his dogs. He's just letting them outside, and it's just like playing Minesweeper, full of shit. The whole backyard, like the whole thing. Like you can throw a rock and not hit a Mexican restaurant here. I can't put 1 foot down in his backyard without stepping on crap. That's how bad it is over there. Damn. So I crawl the fence, give him my ID. My dad wanders out. How are you doing home? You're supposed to be home tomorrow morning. And then I'm like, I want to sleep in my own bed. And he's just like, well, why'd you trip the alarm? And I'm just like, I didn't trip the alarm. The dogs did. And then he's just like, yeah, the neighbor's dogs. He's like talking to the police. Like, the neighbor's dogs trip the alarm all the time. It happens. And the police officer's just like, oh, this is some loud dogs. And I'm just like, I have them peer through the fence, and all the dogs are there, like militia style, in a row, just looking at the fence. Because you can see, because the gaps are like that big. Yeah. They're just looking at the fence, and the cop verbatim says, holy shit, that's a lot of dogs. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
And my dad's just like, can't you call the department? And he's just like, if they own the house, we don't do anything about that. And I'm like, ah! So, in other words, get rid of some dogs!
Or get a spare key, I don't know.
Are you delegitimizing his feelings?
Yes.
No, I just like dogs.
I do too, but man, like...
David, dogs.
And half of them are chihuahuas. Who collects like 90 chihuahuas? And then, no, it's the weirdest thing, because it's like Noah's Ark. They're all calm with each other. He's got pit bulls and mastiffs and greyhounds and all this, and they're all in the backyard and they're all chill with each other, but as soon as just something, a leaf floats by the fence. It's like the world's collapsing. Let's all bark. That'll help. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because honestly, I seriously think he trains them to do this on purpose. He trains them to do this on purpose. So
This has been David Strawbridge. Return to us next week when he talks about his high blood pressure.
there should be a dog per square foot law.
That's all I'm
20
saying.
dogs per square feet.
Vertically stacked, there's probably 90 dogs per square foot there.
So it just becomes one giant cluster.
Excellent. Excellent.
That was so much more rage-induced than I was expecting.
I love it so much. That is one of my favorite segments in this podcast.
That's great. I need to be here more for this.
Yeah. Go back like 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah,
Go back 2 or 3 episodes in his first David Strobridge.
I had to pay the DMV $668 because my car works. You will understand if you listen to it. Yeah. You will understand if you listen to it. You will understand.
You have to go back and listen to it because we don't have time to rehash that whole story. But yeah,
all right.
Okay, so you might go borrow this.
Which podcast is that on?
That was on the top 5 worst movies.
Yes, it was.
Worst game.
Worst game. Top 5. Yes, bottom 5 worst games.
Bottom 5 worst games.
Yeah.
Top of the bottom 5.
So we've had a debate on this channel before with me and Nathanael.
Yes.
Nathanael and I.
Shut up, grammar Nazi.
I love you, David.
The person who
We just lost our German audience.
Of like 3 people.
No, Lotta.
Lotta and then maybe 2 other people.
That's still 50% of your audience.
Yeah.
That's true. No, that's true. That very well may be true.
Fun fact, though, the person who proofread Hitler's speeches, he was a grammar Nazi.
I mean,
When do I get paid for this? I believe.
I did not see that coming, dude.
it's like just spell my name right on the check. Anyway, grammar Nazis aside, we are back here for another debate, and that is our main topic.
What is our main topic? What's the name of the debate?
Star Wars prequels.
Do they suck? Or do they not suck?
Yes. So,
Right?
I ran it by Douglas, a week before this, and I asked him, if there was any other topics that he might be interested in debating, all that stuff, because I know he likes to argue just for the sake of arguing.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. So I asked him beforehand because Nathaniel was worried that there wouldn't be a lot of substance. But I asked Doug, and he said, "Oh no, I got a bunch of points already prepared, so I'm ready."
Well, I mean, I'm not really worried about there not being much substance. I mean, I'm just sad about it because they just don't have much substance. So
The movies themselves.
Yeah, it's a little dry, but it's okay.
David again will be our moderator because he is a great moderator and good at coming up with questions when he hears people talk.
Indeed.
You will be hearing less and less of me as the podcast progresses and more of Douglas and Nathaniel, which I'm sure that's what people want to hear. Mm-hmm. So I will turn it over to David, our moderator, and we will get this debate underway.
and he obviously had hours of preparing and writing these questions. Like he went through thorough research.
I'm very good at asking.
I'm pretty sure he watched like
My
9
favorite
hours
one-
of the movies, but
My favorite one is Why God Why? Just like last night.
Why, God?
Yeah.
Why?
It's the most literary and personal of questions.
So, yeah.
I think the best way to start this, because there's always 2 sides to the story, is there's always something on both sides that allow you to have this opinion. So I guess we'll start on both sides, and since the prequels were first, we'll start on Douglas' side. And he will talk... see what I did there?
I see what you did.
So, well, we'll just go on either side and explain why you like the prequels or why you don't like the prequels.
As opening statements.
As opening statements, try to refrain from redacting between each other. Just straight to the questions. You don't, no. Well, he said,
So
Well, he's a racist.
Yeah.
we're not.
No personal.
Wait, this isn't a political debate? I thought this was going to decide who is president.
Right? Yeah. It's going to be Kanye. What are you talking about?
No repeats of the Republican primary or
Right.
the Democratic primary. Just more. Let's just keep it.
Yep.
Let's keep it. Civil. No personal attacks at each
I
other.
just want $2. hologram to be president. That's what I want.
Okay, so, sir, why do you like the prequels?
It's very simple. I like the prequels because it's my childhood. I grew up on that cheesy knockoff kind of stuff. Everyone remembers the originals. Now, I watched the originals growing up, but I didn't get them. Because by the time I was watching movies, the episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was out. So I had that on VHS, but I also had the other 3 on VHS. So it was like, which one goes first? Mom never told me. Dad never discussed with me. I just remember sitting there going, I have 4 of these movies that say Star Wars. What order are they in? So I had to piece that together myself at 6 years old. And I was like...
And you didn't know what Roman numerals were?
No. Not at all.
What does Star Wars I mean?
Yes. It was very
What does Star Wars V mean?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I guess I'm going with this one. So, like, I grew up with watching them, and then, like, I kind of, like, when the Clone Wars came out, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I know where we're going. I was still lost as shit. No clue.
That's just what you told your friends.
Yeah.
That's just what you told us. I get it.
But, like, you know, I grew up watching the prequels more than watching the original trilogy. I still love the original trilogy. I'll sit down, I'll watch all 3 in one day. That's how you do it. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to it, people want to talk trash on movies from a certain time era. They can tell you everything wrong with the trilogies and what's wrong with him in their time era at the same time. Everyone thought it was garbage, but it was hysterical and everyone loved it. That's why it was so successful. Same thing kind of with... Everyone really kind of took the hype of the...
Force Awakens?
No. Empire Strikes Back. And because it really took off after Strikes Back, they thought Phantom Menace was going to really kind of continue after the third movie. Technically, everyone thought they were going to
You mean Return of the Jedi?
No. Yeah.
That's episode 6.
I know.
Yeah.
But 5 took off.
Okay.
Yeah. The 5th, and Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi continued and ended it so nicely, but 5 really is where it takes off and where it kind of goes.
Okay.
So they thought the Phantom Menace was going to do the same thing. They thought, Phantom Menace was going to be a new storyline, everything was going to build off it and kind of like show where it kind of, and explain a lot of the backstory to the Star Wars universe. But it didn't. So that's why everyone got mad. They got a fucking whiny kid, a orange, giant, ugly creature, pod racing, and my favorite, backflips and bullshit. Magic. It was great. Everyone was so confused what they got. I saw a dude who was covered in red paint doing backflips with a dual lightsaber. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I wanted to be Darth Maul for the rest of my life. Ever since then, did not care.
Still to this day, I might add.
Yeah, to this day, if I ever get the chance, some dude's like, "Hey, I can teach you
As a 23-year-old male,
hell yeah,
going through trade school,
dude." He signed up. They started this Space Force. I almost joined immediately. I almost ran into a recruiting office and be like, "Hey, where's the Space Force? I'm ready for this. We're going Star Wars and we're getting ready for it."
Who's the science group working on lightsabers?
Yeah,
I want in.
I will test all of them. So with the Phantom Menace and then the Attack of the Clones kind of like taking off, it really. I actually finished just watching 2 and 3 today right before this because I was like, I gotta remember how bad they are. And 2 was really bad. It was all really bad dialogue, and I forgot. I'm so happy I rewatched it.
Wait a second, are you defending them or are you hating on them?
Both. Okay, I came to do both. I'm not arguing with you. I'm debating with myself for the rest of the day.
It sounds like
Inner Turmoil, the name of this podcast.
I dropped my water.
that's a lot of water.
1 minute remaining for your opening
and
statement.
But the 2 was just so much story that we didn't really. It was a lot of the political rising with Palpatine and really his transition, and that's what was really difficult for 2 because we didn't get like the big fight that we wanted that we got throughout 1 and the rest of the war in the other 3, and then 3. It's just kind of rounds everything together and, it just takes off. So it's really hard to watch the transition between each movie because it's really just a big takeover. No one likes political takeover movies, and no one likes movies where the bad guys win. And the bad guys won all 3 movies, and I love that. I think that's how you end a movie. A bad guy wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I like the original Prequel.
So side note, how big of a hole did your boner rip through your pants when you saw Darth Maul at the end of Solo? Did you not see Solo?
I have not. I've kind of gotten...
Damn it.
Spoiler alert.
I've kind of been falling off the Star Wars because I've been kind of bored with them.
Well, Darth Maul's at the end of Solo, buddy.
Thank you.
You can probably find that on YouTube, so you don't have to watch the movies.
Yeah, you probably.
Yeah.
Solo wasn't.
It was.
I heard.
You could probably find the entire movie on YouTube.
Yeah, I heard, so I didn't even try to go see it.
Yeah, it's literally the last 5 minutes. That's all that matters.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
Childish Landino was.
So yeah, no, I didn't get to go see it. I was just like, it'll be okay.
Nathanael.
Yes.
Sir?
Hello.
Why the prequels blow?
Completely with no redeeming qualities. Because that's kind of where you're at now.
Well, it's bad because it's sci-fi. Like, sci-fi is bad in general.
Let's let the debater talk.
Okay, sorry.
Let's let him.
All right.
Sci-fi is fantastic. It's one of the best genres. Okay, so
Sounds like that's what the debate needs to be. But anyway, all right.
yeah. So I think in general, episodes 1, 2, and 3 are bad movies. I think they're badly made. I think in general their storylines are just not well told. They have bad dialogue. A lot of them are just not shot well. There's literally like a billion scenes, not literally a billion, but there's a billion scenes of just 2 people having a conversation, just walking, and it like pans far away, and they have this like same shot in all the movies, and it's just recycled to death. And then they like zoom in on their faces, and it's just like the same cheesy dialogue, and I don't care about what the characters are saying, and it just feels like a lot of the shots that could have been like done really well were not done really well. I feel like most of the best cinematography is like in the space fights, and that's just like one area of the movie. I just feel like the best 2 areas of the movies would have to be the art style and the music, and I feel like those are phenomenal. Like the design of the clones, of the different like Jedi, of races, of aliens, of cantinas and whatever are fantastic. Like the artist did a phenomenal job, and I would really care about them if I was, given a chance to care about them. But I just don't, because you have this weird, creepy Anakin who makes himself like the subject of a pedophilic, just like love romance that just doesn't make sense to me. And
It's like reverse pedophilia, but
yeah, but he's like, he's like Padme's
yeah.
the pedophile, but. And then you've got like this weird Holy Spirit impregnation with Anakin's mother, and it's just like you've got midichlorians, and I don't know. It's just, I remember as a kid, I loved these films. I was like, I saw one of them in theaters. I saw the first one in theaters, and I was like, oh, it's so good, it's so fun. Jar Jar is like, I don't know, but he's like not bad. Well, I don't know what people say he's bad. And then I remember 10 years later watching it, Jar Jar is 90% of the reason episode 1 is garbage. He just takes up so much of the plot and just will not shut up. And it's just like, what am I watching? Is this like someone's like weird, horrible, nightmarish fan fiction where they got the least interesting alien and most annoying alien and gave him like a starring role in my Star Wars? But it really is. I feel like there's like a lot of nostalgic value for people. But if you like actually go back and watch them, they're just not good movies. I think the third one is probably the best one. I think most people agree on that, but it still, I think, doesn't compare to any of the other Star Wars movies in terms of quality. Like even the newer ones, personally, I think they're just not good films. And George Lucas didn't know what he was doing, and he had too much control, and he just kind of didn't have the talent to follow through. So that's what I think.
All right. Now we have our opinions aside. I think we should start with a little bit of an answer and retort. So I ask both of you about 2 questions.
Retort.
And then I'll ask one of you the question, the other will have a chance to retort, and then vice versa a couple times, and then we should be able to go into a few closing arguments by then. So I shall start with Douglas. So you mentioned how a lot of it was basically about how you came into finding Star Wars. It was the order in which you watched it, which gave you that feeling about the Star Wars movies. the experience of being able to put together the line of, you know, how things got together and then eventually figuring out, you know, how the timeline goes was a lot of the fun for you and why you had, you know, kind of feel like it's reasonable to say it's not a bad movie.
Yeah.
What would you say if, for instance, if they didn't have a prequel in the way that they did, where it was all somewhat politicized and they kind of deconstructed what the Force was and made it very scientific? Do you think that if the prequels were arranged differently, people would have a different view of them? Or do you feel like a lot of the reason why people hate them is just because of the era it came out, the writing was bad, like you mentioned earlier? Do you feel like just the execution was what a lot of people have a bad problem with?
Yeah, no, honestly, like I agree a lot with Nathanael on what he said about the cuts and how everything was filmed and kind of put together, and like the same scene is in every single movie every 5 minutes. I know that, but that's what happened in a lot of movies back then too. It was, I don't know if it's because they followed the style of Star Wars in after that because they took off so well because they had such a huge loyal following already, or because it was just the style back in the day. Because I remember lots of movies being kind of weird around that time, the late 90s to the early 2000s. It's a very weird time in movies, so it's kind of hard to say if it's really bad or if it's just a bad time for movies. Can you name any top number one movies?
Can't say that I can.
No one remembers the movies from back then. They were bad movies. It was a bad time. Top charts on the songs from 1995 to 1990.
Oh.
Or 2005 too.
I've got a few.
Yeah, like you know some songs. There's some bangers up there. That's because music was taking over. Right. So when it comes down to the movies, I do agree they were shot poorly. I do know that, but for their time, they're not bad. They were pretty good. It's looking at them from an actual standpoint of everything's kind of where it is. So yeah, like if we shot the movies a little differently now, if we redid them, I'm pretty sure the story would fall a lot better. I like that the movie isn't entirely full of exposition. A lot of the movies, they set it up, they kind of play it out, and then they'll give you some exposition to kind of explain a little bit and then go more in depth, or they'll kind of reveal something later that was happening before. And so it's stuff like that where I see where people have issues following the story. But, like, trust me, I was 8 years old. I had no clue what was going on. I knew flips and lightsabers and the Jedi were everything, and that was it. But then I started paying attention to the story, and the Sith really took over, and I'm like, nah, the Jedi lost hard on that.
But you wouldn't say that makes them a bad movie for that.
No. I just say they were. It was just how it was back in the day,
A product of the time, you would say.
Yeah, it's what it was of the time.
Yeah.
The dialogue from 2 is definitely one of the worst ones. But I'm a big believer in any trilogy. Any trilogy, the first one's a classic. It sets up the story. It sets everything out. 2 is kind of just a good, whatever, we're going along for it. Maybe there's more growth for characters. 3 takes everything. 3 holds it all, ends it all, and it finishes what it needs to finish. I've seen it in so many movies, and I just believe that's just how it's always been. Except for Shrek. Shrek really. Number 2 is really good, and then 3, I don't know what happened.
Nothing good.
Yeah.
Shrek is love. Shrek is
Except for number 3.
Yeah, Shrek 3 was weird.
Had to happen.
Didn't they make 5 of those?
They're working on it.
Yeah.
They're working on it.
Okay, so there was okay.
It's it's also the same for Ice Age.
Yeah. Oh,
What's
yeah.
that? Don't ever bring that up again.
Okay.
But so you make a very valid point. There's a lot of the only thing I can think of from that era that follows that same suit is Spy Kids. How cringeworthy the movie was.
Yeah, but it was
But it was fun, and I think I get that point where of the time you are right. I can't exactly think of anything from that era that made a good point. So
Lord of the Rings.
Nathaniel,
books.
Yeah.
Full on books from before.
I know. I'm just joking.
Wait. Lord of the Rings came out. They did come out. So did Spider-Man 2, right? Spider-Man.
Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Yes. 2 was shot fantastically.
2 was great.
Lord of the Rings was shot fantastically.
Well, Spider-Man 2 is the one that everyone thinks is really great, except for Amazing Spider-Man 2. Everyone thinks that one was the worst one.
Everyone knows that one was the worst one.
And then the Spider-Man 3, and then you make your picks after that. Anyway, so
Yes.
What do you say to that? That it was a product of the times. What's to be expected?
No, I think throughout just the history of film, I think there have always been bad films. There have always been good films. There have been a mixture. And I think even during that era, I mean, we just thought of Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man. Like, those were shot well. Those had a great story, great acting. And I think to say that they were just a product of the times, like, isn't necessarily what's happening. I think they're just a product of George Lucas's times. And I don't know if he had, like, something going on in his head. I don't know if he, like, broke up with, like, I'm not going to go too far because I don't know George Lucas. I'm not going to bash on him too hard. But I don't know if he, like, just broke off with a relationship or something. Kind of old for that, but, you know, to each his own. I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't the times. They were just bad movies. There's always good. There's always bad.
But for this movie in particular,
I don't think they were bad because they were different. I don't think they were bad because they tried something new. I think it's just because they failed at what they tried. Like, there was a lot of the, like, choreography and stuff was really, really cool, and it was like a huge jump away from the original trilogies. Just like stand and wave your wand around, or your lightsaber just like back and forth. It was like very stiff and just, it was more like fencing, I guess. Whereas in the prequels, it was like really flashy and they jumped around and it was just crazy. And I guess you can't explain that in the sense that it was kind of like this Jedi art that was lost. But I think one of the biggest things from the prequels that just really irks me is that it makes Darth Vader seem like a total whiny emo punk. And it's just, they take this really cool villain and they make him, like, it literally leaves off with him screaming no because he thinks he killed his wife, but he was just like whining the entire time, and he like turned to the dark side for plot reasons. It was like he didn't really have any motivation to go to the dark side. I mean, he wanted Padme to live, but it was just so quick and sudden. It wasn't like, there were like tiny little hints that he was gonna turn to the dark side, and he was like moody and stuff, but it wasn't like, he didn't have any real motivation. It was just, I felt like George Lucas was like, I'm running out of time in episode 3. He needs to be turning into Darth Vader, so I don't know, Padme dies or something. And it was just not set up well. It just wasn't believable for me. And looking back, I was just like, well, now I don't like Darth Vader because he was just this whiny little baby that I don't care about anymore. He's just not cool.
Kind of like Kylo Ren in the first.
I have lots of thoughts about that if you want to debate.
Well,
I probably agree with that. So.
The question I pose to you is, a lot of people feel like the prequels need to be there because a lot of the reason why a lot of us fell in love with Star Wars is because of those prequels, because of the draw of, like you said, the unique, fighting style, how it kind of got you more interested in Jedi and Sith fighting, and how you kind of had to have a better backstory and you kind of got a better idea of where everything came from, and whereas now, as far as 4, 5, and 6 ended up. What would you say if they didn't exist at all? Do you think that would help or ruin it? But in the context that the prequels needed to be there, because a lot of people, and I think you and I are the same, we grew up when 1, 2, and 3 came out. That was a lot of the reason why people got into it. What do you say about that? Do you think people would have gotten into it if it wasn't there?
I think it could go either way, but I think Star Wars could legitimately, I think it's good that the prequels are there, but I think they should have been like not those movies. They should have just been completely different. And I agree with what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, that because the prequels are there are more Star Wars fans, and they kind of like bridge the generations and have like more people come into Star Wars. But I feel like if they were different movies, if they were still prequels but written differently, and Anakin wasn't this whiny little kid named Anakin, who's the character that he is, and was like actually interesting and 3-dimensional, not 1-dimensional like he is, I feel like the same thing would have been accomplished, but better, and there would probably be more Star Wars fans.
On the same side, some would say that these new ones that have come out, 7 and 8, that the argument that writing would have changed them wouldn't have made a difference because of how controversial some of the new movies have come out have been. How obviously episode 8 wasn't exactly received very well. Do you think that, honestly, that the writing was the overarching issue, or do you think that the reason why it has such a controversial subject among Star Wars fans is because of how it's receptive, how people go back to watch it and realize certain things about it in retrospect?
Well, Episode 8 was actually critically acclaimed. Critics in general loved it. It destroyed the box office. The copies for DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff were through the roof. It was the highest for the movie at the time for movies that came out. I don't know what your question is. In retrospect, are people going to look at it the same?
Well, you mentioned writing.
Yes.
So saying that George Lucas didn't have a hand in 1, 2, and 3, and saying
no,
that,
he did.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if
he hadn't.
Because you keep saying George was the problem, why George did this, why George... Do you think he was the issue? Do you think there's just too many cooks in the kitchen for him?
Based on a lot of the behind-the-scenes things I've seen in documentaries and stuff, he had a lot more involvement than he did in the previous ones, and he made a lot of calls. I'm not going to say it's 100% his fault, because I don't 100% know. I just know that he had a lot of credit in those films, but whatever was done, whether or not it was him, I just feel like a lot of decisions, if they had been made differently by people who knew what they were doing, or by people who knew they were doing and wanted actually a good story rather than whatever they were trying to accomplish, then it would have been better.
Douglas, can you retort to what he said?
I agree. If we would have changed up the story a bit and changed Anakin's, especially in 2, his overall attitude towards kind of how things were coming about. But I think we forget how bad we were when we were 16. And I've never gotten the facts on I don't really care how old he's supposed to be and all that. But you gotta remember, it's a 20-year-old playing a 16-year-old. He's gonna come off kind of crybaby-ish, And it's hard to pinpoint how old a character is in certain of these movies because they never say, they don't give a date for everything and every little thing. Unless you dig, and if you dig, then there's lots of books for you. So go right ahead. But I've never cared that too much about that. So I can
also they're not canon anymore.
Yeah. So. No, everything's canon. Okay, because that's very okay. Yeah, I'm talking Disney.
It almost just launched into another debate right there.
So if we would have changed up a few things, yes, we could have improved. But there's always improvements in movies. There's always things we could have worked on, acting styles. But just one actor's kind of poor portrayal isn't enough to ruin a movie for me. Because Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn was great in 1. He carried that movie so hard. He had such a presence in the movie, and Ewan McGregor backing him and kind of following through. And then with McGregor taking over the lead master for kind of the heavy role and following Obi-Wan that's supposed to be in the first movie, New Hope, and kind of trying to portray another actor's version of a character while bringing his own style into it for a new age. It was really nice, and so there's a lot of depth with a lot of characters. If you, it's a lot. It's a little more if you look past some of those characters, you see everyone else's characters. You can kind of see how a few bad choices can affect a movie, yes, but we can look past them to see the overall story and plot take over. And I agree with you. George Lucas definitely stuck away from the story more. If he would have pulled back a little more and let the directors and the artists take over and really choreograph the story a little better and the shots better, everything would have kind of flown a lot better. Because he definitely was. He's a merchandiser. That's what George Lucas is good for. There's video games, there's books, there's posters, there's comics, there's TVs, action figures. So that's what George Lucas was good at. He made 3 movies, knew what to sell. He had all of his Hollywood buddies help him on 3 movies, and he took off with it. Now he's like, all right, let's do it again. I got some ideas, guys, and we're gonna do this my way. And they're all, wait, you try to sell us space wizards with cowboys last time, and we gave you something to use. What are you going to sell us now? Why teenagers? Hear me out. The 90s love whiny teenagers. Because they're all whiny teenagers. so yeah, But I don't think, like, I'm going to wrap this up. I don't think if we didn't have the prequels, I think Star Wars would be fine. Because, like I said, there's comic books, video games, all that. Star Wars the prequels definitely reignited a lot of old fans. And, it definitely turned some away, but it definitely brought a new generation in. And just like with these new movies, remember, these movies are kind of for kids. The original trilogies, a lot heavier plot, a lot more to think about. So they definitely kind of... It's not as much kid movies, but the prequels definitely were kid movies, but they were bringing a very adult story in the background for all adults who wanted that original Star Wars feel. Now, the new trilogies are just family disputes, and that's what I'm going to finish on.
So, getting back to the look of the movies. Obviously, a big jump from the original three, and a lot of people critically acclaim it for how visually enticing not so much 1 but 2 and 3 ended up being, and how a lot of people enjoyed the movies for that. A lot of the wars, a lot of the fights, a lot of it was very much enjoyable. I'm biased to this as well. I love seeing laser guns and lightsaber duels.
That's all I grew up on, so that was it.
So do you think that a lot of the reason why people still like the prequels is for that mainly, just the violence of it, how it's so turnkey from the original 3, where you didn't really have too much. It was a lot of, slow-moving action, but 1, 2, and 3 is by far more action than actual plot. Do you think that's a lot of the reason why people hold this so dear? Do you think that a lot of people who defend it love it for that reason?
I think starting with Phantom Menace, how we see 2 Jedi come in, play after... I lost what I was going to say.
two Jedi's coming to face Darth Maul,
and they say, "Do you not do it?"
Yes,
I think is where you were.
No. That's not where I was going. So the original trilogies, they started very slow, but it was a build into the Jedi. It was the Empire starting, and it was the collapse of the Empire with the Jedi rising. So they reversed that for this one. It was a huge empire, and now a
Republic.
Yeah, and a republic, or a huge Jedi Order and a republic.
Confederacy.
Yeah, the Confederacy.
Yeah.
It's a small Confederacy trying to mess with the republic, so it's very reversed. Everything's reversed all the way. So it's trying to introduce that to a new concept to older fans, but it starts slow. It's a slow build, and it's really fast all of a sudden with the Jedi needing to get out and stuff. So we're kicking off the action really quickly, which really built the story. But then we hit a really mediocre point in the middle where we're on this random island, on this random desert planet for no reason. We got to get this kid. So it takes a while to get the story back rolling. And, this is just how they're setting it up. But then there's bits of the lightsaber action, lots of action throughout it, which kind of help carry. And then they stuck with that for 2 more movies. They did. So 2...
I hate sand, it's coarse and rough, and it gets everything.
That's the middle. That's the dull middle that everyone hates, and the love affair going on.
Yeah, the
how they
creepy, scary.
Rolling in the grass.
Let me cut your pear for you.
Assassination attempt. That's how they started.
Yeah.
Thank you. So they bring in. So that's what was so great about 2 is they caught your attention with the ship. Like they bring you back to like the first movies where it's just a ship. Like they show you this beautiful ship, and it's like, all right, well, who's this lady coming off? Boom, and everyone's dead. And it's like, oh, it's getting real in the beginning of the movie. Now it's all political debates, and everything's going to be about there's a war coming on and what's going on. And then the whole mannequin Padme stuff, which we'll skip over because no one. It was cringeworthy even when I was 10. So you do get lots of points of dull for the old movies and lots of story, but then you also get the very big flash. Every end of the one with Qui-Gon and Kenobi and Darth Maul, it was a huge battle, but it was just 3 dudes. It was a huge battle. 2, it was a huge actual war going on, taking off in a battle where we lost lots of Jedi. 3, it's just a complete annihilation, but it's like it's spread out for the last 45 minutes of the movie. So they really expand and they really developed how they would kind of play out their movies at the end course. The end course is where the movies kind of pull together and they kind of stick.
Zam, what say you? Do you agree?
That was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I was about to cut you off too because you were getting close to 6 minutes on that one.
He's fine. So I think a lot of what the point he's making is that it's the right pacing for the movies, and a lot of the setup for the movie it allows for action to be the center, and it helps it along. Do you agree?
I think a lot of the action in those, I think they were more action oriented than the original trilogy. And I think even though that was the focus, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, the problem is that the bits of story that they did have didn't, like, some of them did, but most of them didn't draw me into what was happening in the action to the point where I cared about what was happening in the action. Looking back, I do have a lot of nostalgia, and I really like certain parts. But then when I try to look at them without like having that attachment of the past, it's just hard to find too many good parts of the movies. And going back to like with Liam Neeson, he was fantastic. He was great in the movie, and then they killed him off because he was that, and he was just a good part of the movie, so they thought they'd cut him out and just keep the bad parts. But Ewan McGregor was also really great in the films, but I feel like he was one of the few like highlights for the film. And even though he did like a lot of great for the trilogy, like him alone wasn't able to detract from stuff like Jar Jar Binks and Anakin, and even I felt like even Padme was like pretty one-dimensional looking back. She's not as interesting as they hoped she would be. I don't know, I understand the whole bringing it to another generation, but it didn't really have to be in the way that they brought it back. There's just a lot of ways to make good films, and I think the excuse to say that they were for kids doesn't work, because kids honestly like really do get good movies and like deeper movies than you think. Like, just because it's a kid movies doesn't mean it has to be bad or dumbed down. Because I remember as a kid, I watched a lot of movies that were like still considered like really good for adults. And a lot of people will make like kids films that are just the stupidest, most ridiculous, like
Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
I was thinking to do that same.
I haven't watched it,
Trolls.
but
Trolls was so good.
Emoji movie?
Teen Titans Go to the Movies is actually supposed to be really good.
No, don't not. I will stab you.
it has different writers. So, but I think dumbing down movies and saying that, oh well, it's for kids, is just kind of an insult to kids and is not acknowledging how smart kids actually are and how they appreciate stuff. They might not pick up a lot of nuances, but a good film is a good film, a bad film is a bad film.
All right. Last question to you, Nathanael, and then we'll do a little wrap up.
Yes.
Going along the path of nostalgia, a lot of the reason why a lot of people like them is for that exact reason, because at one point they watched it and it holds a certain place in their heart at that time. Obviously, you've made the point that over time it has not lasted the test of time, and it hasn't. Would you say that if rewatching the movies without context, because I feel like a lot of the time people watch them without the context of that we've seen 4, 5, 6, and we know what to expect of it. Do you think somebody new watching it will appreciate it as much as if it was released in the time when it was? For instance, do you think that when you watched it when you were a kid and you got that same excited feeling where, oh, this is Star Wars, this is great, do you think that if someone has no idea what Star Wars is and you introduce them to that, do you think they'll have that same emotion, or do you think they'll feel like this is a bad movie? So what would you say to that?
Yeah, if someone has not seen the old Star Wars and they just don't know what Star Wars is and they're just like jump straight into these movies, I think there's a lot to love. I think there is, again, like great music, some of the best music scores I think in film. They're just phenomenal tracks. I think it has a great art style that you could really appreciate. There are some great shots, there are some interesting characters, but in general, I think people watching these films for the first time would just be like, there's more bad than good. I think that's generally what the takeaway is, and I think disguising it in great visuals and great sound, that is just like covering. It's just like polishing a turd. It's still a turd. It's just really shiny.
Doug?
No, I agree. There are lots of bad. Like, it would be really hard to introduce a character like Jar Jar Binks to someone But you have to remember what age you're introducing them to, you know, what's their intent into getting into a movie. There's a lot of movies that are, you know, that are meant to be stupid, and people go in knowing they're meant to be stupid. But when you come into a movie like Star Wars, it's all over the place. There's a serious plot going on. There's a dark entity in the back. There's love and romance, but there's also this dumb Jar Jar Binks running around the first movie, and you're like, why is he here?
I think we can all confirm Star Wars 9, Jar Jar is the actual Sith Lord.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like
his brother Tartar.
Tard.
So it's going to be interesting to actually like find someone who doesn't know anything about Star Wars and bring him just to the prequels and be like, hey, these are movies about a political debate a political dispute and a war and a rebellion coming up, you know. But like you also have to. No one's going to ever really dive someone into a series without spoiling something for them, because that's why you bring them in, you know. But you also tell them it's bad to start, because you're like, if you realize what's bad about it, I'm going to tell you what's bad, but I want you to experience the good for yourself. Did you swap the timers on that?
Yeah. Glance over here to see here.
I'm ADHD, man.
Is that better?
No, I got all stare. Yeah. So it's.
Well, what would you say about what you mentioned? How you can't excuse bad writing by disguising it with plot and sound and fancy effects. Do you think that the writing was really bad enough to cover up with certain things like that? Do you think that that's a good excuse to why not to like the movie?
I don't think the writing was bad per se. I think how it was laid out was bad. You know, like, because again, you talk about how there was two characters throughout most of the movie talking to each other for most of the movie. In a political system of deceit and, you know, turmoil, that's what you do. That's how it goes out. There's lots of things like that. So it's kind of hard to agree that it's bad writing, but in a sense, the dialogue is bad. The dialogue does need to work. It does need to be more, you know, expanded upon and actually, you know, the story laid out through the dialogue. But they were trying to lay it out with less exposition and more about showing you where this is going. So, you know, in a sense, there's kind of back and forth on it for me.
All right. Well, let's go into closings. I guess the best way to close it is by saying simply, why should we hate the prequels and why should we love the prequels? So, Nathanael, I'll let you start. Why should we hate the prequels?
Well, I don't think we should necessarily hate the prequels. I think, what do you call it? Like, there's a tiny bit of diamond inside of that huge, like, coal heap. But I think there's a little bit to like, but they're just, in general, not they're just almost not even passable movies. I feel like there's just so much with them that could have been done better. And again, like going back to the dialogue, it's just like so poorly constructed. And I feel like the writers of that film or writer, whoever completely wrote it, couldn't handle more than two characters in a scene because they don't understand what like more than two characters talking to each other means. And they're just like, oh, what happens if you had a third or fourth person? I don't know how to write that. It's so confusing. Then you'd have to like juggle that. I don't know. There's just so much wrong with these films, but I wouldn't say that they shouldn't be watched. I think they're definitely important to the Star Wars universe. So if you're trying to like learn more about Star Wars or get the whole picture and everything, they're a necessary watch. They might be painful in some places. It's particularly the first one, which is like almost unwatchable to me now. They're a necessary watch, but they are what they are, and
they are a necessary evil.
There you go. But I do agree with Doug. I love that the bad guys win. I think that's so great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I think that's like, for me, I love when the villains win.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. It's so much work. Oh my god, that made me cry so much.
Oh, really?
It was so good. Oh my god. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. I broke down. Oh my god, I broke down during that.
I did too.
Oh my god, like,
dude, I love that.
Like Thanos, his face at the end was just like he felt complete.
Dude, I cried more at the end of Logan, but yeah, I know.
Oh my god, stop.
Dude, Logan is so good.
Okay, come on.
Sorry. Rein it in.
We're all nerds. We're all nerds here.
We're not done.
Okay.
We're not done.
So
Why should we love the prequel?
So it's great when like a bad guy wins, and it's nice seeing like a plot kind of finish off, and then it also leads into the rest of what we know, and it kind of then there's like this big middle where we're like, yeah, we kind of know what happens there because there's 200 books that told us what happened there.
They're not canon.
Come on. Sorry.
But when it comes down to liking them, it's I'm gonna always say there's good and there's bad in each series for each movie. Even like all the Marvel movies right now, there's so many good Marvel movies, and like Iron Man 1 will be a classic for the next 20 years. We will all agree to that. It will hold strong. There's weak points in it. And you can see all 3 Iron Man movies are kind of the same in a sense.
Well, the first one was great. The second two were
see, like there's nothing good in everything. Everyone loves Marvel, but we know where they fall.
Thor 2 is garbage.
Yeah.
Thor 2,
Sorry, what? Thor what? There's only Thor and Ragnarok.
There's no...
What do you mean it's called Dark World?
No. There's the first part of, as soon as he gets sent to Earth and first Thor, check out. Just stop watching, jump immediately to Ragnarok. You can pick up the rest. And
Anyway, Star Wars.
But there's good and bad.
First 2 suck because Padme's in it.
Come on.
But Natalie Portman's hot though, so
Doesn't do anything.
But if I'm gonna close off for why Star Wars is watchable, there's only one character and one reason, and it's Samuel motherfucking L. Jackson.
Yeah.
We'll clear out why Star Wars is so good. That guy went to George Lucas was like, so I'm gonna be the only brother in this movie? Really? I'm getting a purple lightsaber. And they were like,
all right.
That's a true statement.
No, yeah.
He said that. He said, I'm getting a purple lightsaber. And they went, yeah, you are.
Yes, sir.
And straight out, one of the coolest things is watching him go to Boba Fett and purple lightsaber to the neck. Samuel L. Jackson pulled these movies together and everything. He did so good.
He was the best.
There was a lot of really heavy, even Palpatine. Palpatine had a huge story arc for himself. And it's really hard to ignore Palpatine's rise. From these shadows comes up and takes over. Now, I like all the fan theories about Palpatine stealing Padme's life at the end of 3, where she's dying herself, but she's fine. She can recover herself. It's Anakin who's dying. So now the whole movie's about using someone to save someone's life. The entire 3rd movie is about being able to save someone's life.
Do it.
What do you think that means? Someone's got to die by a sacrifice. It's a whole thing. So if you connect little pieces and everyone's little fan theories, it makes it so much better. But if you exclude them, there's still lots of working room. There's still lots of good things to do, and there's still lots of good kind of conclusions to come across, at the end with themselves and everyone's own finishing points. It's kind of where everyone finishes off at the end of the movie.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. There's a lot of good points, and I think what we can derive from this is
that I am the Republic.
I was going to say this is pod racing, but absolutely.
It's working!
Yeah.
It's working!
Yippee!
I think
You're running away.
Yeah. I think what I can derive from this is that it's a stepchild. Sure, we don't want to accept it. There's good and bad things about it. But, a lot of what we love about it is because it's there. It's a part of the family.
It's the redheaded stepchild.
We don't want to like it, but it's there, and it's there for us to enjoy. And
it's like family.
Yeah,
you love it, but you don't always like it.
Exactly. So, gentlemen,
no, those are very good points. Yeah.
So, thanks so much for joining us here on Nerdin' Out. Follow us on Twitter at Nerdin' Out. Also, we have our Facebook that is under the same name. Our email again is nerdinoutpodcast@gmail.com. Email us questions, tweet at us, all that stuff. So thank you for our combatants in this debate. You guys both made some very good points. You guys kept it civil. I appreciate that. No one took any shots at anyone. Everyone. You guys are just genuinely. You guys are friends anyway, so there's no reason for you to take shots at each other anyway.
I had a shot I gotta take. I like your Assassin's Creed tattoo. It's great.
Yeah.
I was gonna say David doesn't have a good angle of that because he's covered, but yeah.
Oh snap!
Right? That's pretty cool, right? That's cool. Yeah, it's like from Black Flag. That's like his favorite Assassin's Creed game.
This is so good. Like it's just pirates and assassins. Like,
it's like the best of two worlds, really. From me over here, almost not saying a word this entire podcast, and thank you to thank you, Doug, love you too. To David, our moderator, he did such a good job again.
Thank you.
Guys usually
I am the Senate.
And then Nick over there on the therapist couch.
I have problems.
we don't have time for that, so we'll just skip on it.
Well, we're out of time, so your issues will have to be brought up another time. Thank you for joining us on Nerding Out. We will see you next time.
Go play some sand.
It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
It's coarse, it's rough, it's irritating.
I love how he uses 3 adjectives.
It's like, we get it. Sand sucks. We got it, man.
Imagine if they had that line. It was just like, oh, sand sucks.
Dude, no. It's
Actually, it blows.